Hello guys, in this video we will see how we can upgrade our server to handle multiple clients. Now on the client side we will not be changing anything, however from the server side we're gonna do a minor modification for the code. Anyway, the idea to handle multiple clients can be summarized in two key factors. First, we have to create two infinite loops. The first loop will handle any incoming connection, and the second loop will keep taking the user input and send it to the current target that we are interacting with. The second point, any server has to create a unique session for each client in order to distinguish between the clients. So each time we got a new successful connection from a target, the Paramiko server creates a new SSH session ID for this client. So we need to correlate the target IP with their session IDs. Then we need to store the session IDs in a database or at least in a dictionary variable in the memory. By keeping the sessions, we can jump between targets that we want to execute our command on via simply calling its session ID. So let's jump to the coding part and see that in practical. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna change the number of the listening incoming connection to 100. Next, I will create a global variable called diction. Now dictions is gonna store the incoming source IP of our targets along with their assigned SSH session IDs. Now, as we said, to make this works, we need to have two infinite loops. The first one is keep listening for any incoming connection, and this part here is responsible on accepting new targets and authenticate them. So I'm gonna create a new function called loop A. And make an infinite while loop. And let me arrange the code under this loop here. And I will also change the accept value to 100 for the SSH here. And I will just remove this send message line. Remember that the TCP socket accept function returns both the source IP and the source port that our target used to initiate the connection back to us. The IP address is stored in a variable named ADDR, and the SSH session ID is stored in a variable named chan, which stands for channel. So the key in our dictionary is the IP address, and the correlated value is the session ID. And in Python language, when we define a dictionary, a column should separate between the key and its value. So the key in our dictionary is the IP address, and the correlated value is the session ID. Now, the second part is responsible for the interaction with our target. So here we create a new function to contain this loop. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna check if the diction contains any input. This means, in other words, if we got any current connection from any target. And if it does, then the result of this if statement will be true. And if that's the case, then we're gonna start taking the user input via the raw input command. Now within this loop we have to create a way to jump between the targets. And as I said, we can do that by replacing the SSH session ID. So I'm gonna create a new if statement saying that if the user input was a switch keyword, then this means we have to jump to another target and replace the SSH session ID. So we will ask to enter the new target IP that we want to interact with in order to call the session ID that is correlated with that IP, and finally put it in the chan variable. At this point, the chan variable contains the new target session ID, and in case we send any command, it will be sent to the new target. Next step, we have to create a way to print all the current sessions that we have. So in a new line, we will say that if we received a list keyword, we will print out the entire dictionary. And at the end, if the input was neither switch nor list, then we will send out that command to our target and print out the result. Finally, to run these two infinite loops in parallel, we're gonna have each one of them in a separate thread. So here I will start loop A, and then loop B, loop B. Okay, so I saved the changes and started our server and the Kivy virtual machine client, and as you can see we got our connection from 192.168.1.100. Now if we typed list, it will print out the dictionary content, and as you can see here the dictionary key is the IP address and the value is the session ID here. So this is the SSH session ID. Okay, right now at this point I will start another client, which is the Android device that has an IP address of 192.168.1.101. Now if I type list, notice that right now we got two entries. And also if I typed ls, we got automatically switched to the Android session, as these files are located on my Android device. Now, as we have written in our code, if we want to jump between targets, we need to type switch, and we should be then prompted with the IP address of the target that we want to interact with. And in our case, it is 192.168.1.100. And at this point, if I typed ls and uname, notice here that we are currently interacting with the Kivy virtual machine. Okay, and if we want to go back to the Android, we type switch, then 192.168.1.101, and to verify I'm gonna type uname, and showing that we are running on the Android device right now. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I would like to thank you very much for watching.